Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is the Steel Curtain Network's not editor, but podcaster Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night, just a little bit after 9 o'clock. Where else would you rather be if you're a Steelers fan? Lots of stuff to talk about, and to talk to me with it, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going?
It is going. Hey, we are Tuesday night. We are there. And Afton, no, I am not having any technical difficulties.
The big technical difficulties last week was Jefferson Bartholomew.
I was saying, who do you think I am? Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman? It's like, no, I am good to go tonight.
No, the problem with Jeff is if he has to restart his computer, it takes like a half an hour. And I'm like, and he had his computer completely freeze, took forever to restart it. I tell you what, my computer, I shut it down every night. You know how long it takes me to restart my computer? 30 seconds, and it's up and going.
I run into that issue if I forget my work laptop and have to use Alex's old one.
Yeah,
it takes forever to boot up and go. But when I have my one from work, it's the same way. 30 seconds, it's up and going. If that.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, as Kathy said, I missed it. Where'd it go? As Kathy said, hey, 5 after is practically early.
It is if your last name. It is if your last name is Schofield.
Must be honorary Schofields as well, because my wife's last name is Schofield now. It has been for almost 20 years, but she's really if that's the case, then she's way more than that than I am. But that's a whole different story. Rich, today wasn't just off season, phase. It's now a different phase. Today started phase 3 of off season workouts. Better known as OTAs. You have organized team activities is phase 3. It started today, Tuesday, May 23rd. You're going to get 3 weeks of OTAs, then a week of mandatory minicamp, maybe, because last year they didn't even do the last week because they said they got everything done. But this was the first time the whole team, or most of the whole team, was together in a setting with coaches that they could even run drills up to 11-on-11 drills. Rich, this is the closest you get other than training camp. Thoughts on anything you heard or saw or with stuff today with the Steelers?
In case you haven't heard, Darnell Washington is a very large man.
I saw one. I'll be honest with you. I had a very busy day. I have not listened to the interviews yet that players made after their workout session. I'm going to dive into them tonight after the show, just because I want to listen to them. But one of the things I did see was a video of Pickett to Washington. On that one, it's like, can get used to that. That's a good one. So it's interesting. Anything to take from stuff today?
I too have not got to listen to the interviews. I did get to watch just a couple quick clips of some snaps here and there. Just good to see him back in uniform and out there doing some drills. Just 17 weeks. Just 17 weeks.
Yeah, and I will tell you, not everyone was there. Some people are saying, "Oh, not everyone's here. I'm not allowed to say who." And then I saw another beat reporter say who it was. But apparently, I don't know if he's still trying to get out of his pool. But apparently, one Trent Jordan Watt was not there.
He sprained his pride.
Yeah, man, I talked about that on the Week That Was podcast. Everyone needed to just calm down about that. It was funny. I mean, he took an embarrassing moment of himself and he put it out on social media because it was funny. I mean, have you slipped and fallen in the water before? Yeah, I know I have. I know you have.
I don't remember. I don't know about slipping and falling in the water, but you do remember the up to the basement moment.
Oh, and yeah,
when
when
we were
you,
we
yeah,
what were we trying to do?
you were running to jump off the dock, and you hit a slick spot,
No,
and you said, "Oh,
uh-uh.
which one are you talking about?"
No, 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 no. The time I fell and that happened, it was raining.
Hmm.
We were there working on the dock, but remember what had happened was that little
Oh,
blue boat we
you're
had
talking
had
about that
sunk.
time.
And remember we were yeah, I'm talking about
Yeah,
that time. That was the
yeah.
time that I mean, wiped out hard on the dock and then bounced
Mhm,
off the dock into the gravel, you know.
mhm.
Um,
No, I also I remember the one time when we were running and jumping and diving, and you
yes.
ran and you slid, and you actually you cut your knee open pretty bad.
Yeah.
Because I remember you got out of the water, went over to the other side of the dock. I'm like, and you're holding your towel up to your face. I'm like, Rich, what's wrong? And you're like, look at my leg. And I looked down, and because you got out of the water, it looked much worse. Because I'm like, you just had a whole trail down your leg. But we've been there. Oh, and we have to say it because people don't know that's an inside joke with our family. When we say it on up to the basement moment, it's actually from an episode of the Three Stooges. That the Three Stooges were pretending to be plumbers to get away from a police officer, and they ran. And they asked, and they said the leak was in the basement. And they asked where the basement was, and Curly goes upstairs, and they said up to the basement, and they ran downstairs, start running around the leak, and Mo just completely wipes out.
Anytime somebody wipes out, we say they went
So
up to the
whenever
basement.
anyone wipes out where their feet just slide out from underneath them, we call it's an up to the basement.
Oh, by the
So
way, I had
insight to the Schofields.
just on another quick note along those lines, I had 2 of those episodes this winter, falling trying to get from my driveway to the garage.
Oh, but when it's
Just
ice, you kind of expect it.
just
Yeah.
wiped out hard.
Oh, we got onto this topic, and then I had to explain that because this was TJ Watt, the pool video. Great, funny stuff. Some people flipped out about it. About, oh my goodness, why you do? I'm like, let the dude skim his pool and take a misstep and fall in. That's pretty cool. But he was not at OTAs today. Go ahead, Rick.
Had he been hurt, we'd have never seen the video.
Yeah, exactly. And
we saw
would,
the video.
Yeah.
He put the video out there because he was okay.
Yeah.
Because it was just a dumb, stupid, hey, I tried to stretch and reach a little too far. Whoop, down I go,
Yeah. Yeah. So it was fun. It was interesting. And like people said, TJ Watt is not like he's not going to be ready to go. Who knows what was going on? I don't think that he's not going to not be there for the whole time. And chances are, if he wasn't there, he told everyone. He told, the proper people about where he was and what's going on. Some people were wondering if Alex Highsmith would be there because they're like, oh, was he going to hold in? No, Alex Highsmith was there. He spoke afterwards. I really, that's the first one I'm going to listen to. That's the first one I'm going to listen to as soon as we're done here tonight. So there was some interesting insider information on Monday's Let's Ride from Jeff Hartman that he got, that they say it's not a question of if, it's just when, and it's not even a question of the total amount of what the Steelers deal is going to be with Alex Highsmith. It's more with the structure. They kind of already have almost all of it in place, and they're just ironing out a couple things. They want him there. He wants to be there. It's going to be all good. Yeah, and as Felicia said, TJ's cell phone was more damaged than his body or pride from all that. But yeah, Alex Highsmith, that's some good and exciting stuff. But even with the TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith and what players are at OTAs, it kind of all feeds into this topic tonight. You ready to crush into this?
Yeah, let's crush.
And that is, we said Steelers fans need to relax when reading the tea leaves. Now, some people might not know what we mean by reading the tea leaves. Another way to say it is you could say looking into the crystal ball. It's trying to see the future. Reading the tea leaves is like you look at the leaves in the bottom of your of your teacup and see if it's sending a message. Trying to figure these kind of things out. And the reason we say we need to kind of relax is I've heard some pretty interesting things over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, man, Steelers fans really, really love them some players that they've never seen wear the black and gold before. Almost to a certain degree. I'll give you an extreme example. Rich, you might have been privy to this one. This one happened yesterday on our Slack channel. So once again, I'm going to throw Andrew Wilbar under the bus.
Oh yeah,
just
go ahead.
Just because I can, because we love Andrew, we really do. And I don't know if Andrew still feels the same way. It might have been a knee-jerk reaction thing. He was very upset that the Pittsburgh Steelers released running back Master Teague.
Yes,
and he went so far as to say that he brings more to the table than Jaylen Warren. Just kind of need to relax when you're trying to read the tea leaves there, Andrew. that's a little bit too much. So yeah. No, I'm not saying that Master Teague couldn't have been a great player for the Steelers, but they specifically chose to release him ahead of OTAs. I think they have a little bit better idea than what we do. I really do. There must have been a reason for that. But then to go, the Steelers release him, but he could have been more than Jaylen Warren. That's really reading into stuff an awful lot. So does that make sense? I mean, yes. I liked Master Teague. I thought he was an intriguing person. But I ain't going that far because, we really like Jaylen Warren. You're the one who called Jaylen Warren being that guy last year at this time.
Yeah, I just saw – I can't even call it a regular day of camp because we had the rainstorm, so they were doing things a little differently. But just seeing that guy a little bit, I was like, this guy's going to have a shot. He's got an energy. He's got a – sometimes you have a feeling to just look at something and say – that somebody say they've got an it factor about them, and Jaylen Warren had that, and I was not surprised at all when he made the team and ended up being the backup to Najee.
Yeah, I thought that was a great find for the Steelers, and the thing is, they're like, well, Master Teague, maybe he could have been. He was in camp last year. Now, granted, he got hurt, but he wasn't anywhere on Jaylen Warren's level last year before he got hurt. No. So, well. That to me, that's one of the things is like, yeah, sometimes it's paralysis through analysis. Okay. They talk about it with players on the field where you overthink it so much. I like to say, I've said this in the past, that sometimes the lead up to the Super Bowl being 2 weeks can make those people breaking it down completely crazy as to what they actually think. I mean, Mike Greenberg's a classic example of this. You could give Greenberg 2 weeks and he'll take a team that should be, I mean, let's not go NFL. Let's do college because you can get more discrepancy there. He'll take a college team that's maybe a 20-point underdog going into a game. And if you give him enough time to have to talk about it, he's going to convince himself that there's no way that team's going to lose. So sometimes that's kind of what we do. And we see some of these moves that the Steelers are making at the bottom of the roster, and we overemphasize things a little bit about how it could be. Unless it's a pretty big splash signing like a Larry Ogunjobi was last year. Guys that the Steelers are bringing in now, most of them are not going to be someone who makes the 53. Most of them. Yeah, you get the occasional guy. Like Zach Banner was added partway into training camp, and he ended up making the roster. Didn't dress for a year until he actually kept coming on. But sometimes we just try to take this a little bit too much. Anything you want to say about that before I dive into a couple more specific examples?
Actually, I was gonna go with an
Give me one
example a little bit. Okay, so it's like, again, I want to say either trying too hard to read what you want to see or you think you see in the tea leaves that may or may not be there. Okay. Yeah. Steelers release Ahkello Witherspoon and everybody hops on they must really like Joey Porter Jr. He's going to have to start. Yeah.
That was my next one.
Everybody forget. Did everybody forget that Patrick Peterson's on the roster? That Levi Wallace is on the roster? That, you've got two guys with starting experience that are out there, that Joey Porter Jr. is not just being handed the starting gig game one. Yeah. And people were already jumping to that conclusion. It's like you all were reading into this too much.
Yes.
Especially when you looked at when the Steelers had signed both Witherspoon and Wallace, and you and I talked about this, they had the same contract.
The same.
They
Same
signed them both to the
breakdown.
same contract.
Yeah.
What they did was they got that 2-year contract and basically were left to battle it out. One of them would get it, one of them would get cut.
Yeah. And Akello Witherspoon hardly played because he was injured. I get that.
Yep.
And he had some really great plays for the Steelers, but he was also had some pretty bad ones. That sums up his whole NFL career. If you talk to people that cover other teams that he was playing with, it was a lot of up and down. But I did see that an awful lot of, well, I guess Joey Porter Jr. is the starter now. I have news for you. Akello Witherspoon wasn't the starter.
That's right.
Akello Witherspoon wasn't the starter. So how did getting rid of him suddenly put Porter in the starting lineup? So, but Joey Porter Jr., first pick of the second round, any other year would have been the final pick of the first round. But since 2002, by number of selection. So yeah, there's a lot of hope there. And honestly, I think this doesn't mean that Joey Porter Jr. might see more of the field. Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I think this actually spoke more to Corey Trice Jr.
Could
Could
Joey Porter Jr. be the starter day one?
Absolutely.
Yes, if he goes into camp and wins the position.
Yeah.
But we were reading too much into they must really like Joey Porter Jr. and he's going to be the starter. And it's that, pump the brakes a second. Let's look at those tea leaves again and see what might really be there.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it spoke more to Corey Trice Jr., not just him as a player, but probably his health. The Steelers had rookie minicamp. They were able to see him actually run through some more drills health-wise and said, you know what? We do have enough healthy bodies, even with Arthur Millette asking to go, and felt confident that was going to be a good move for them. And I can't remember who was it, Shannon? Somebody is still saying, you could take what you saved from cutting Akello Witherspoon. You can bring back William Jackson III on a really cheap deal. And since you never got to really see him last year, I don't know if he's interested, but I mean, I wouldn't rule that out either. So now all of a sudden, if the Steelers went out and brought back William Jackson III on a cheap deal, does that suddenly mean that now Joey Porter is never going to see the field?
Right.
No, that's reading too much into the tea leaves again. So, but this is what we do this time of year. We've got tons of time until training camp. So that's part of it. I'm going to bring up another one because Felicia put this out there. Hey, Felicia.
Hey, Felicia.
I actually had someone criticize that we end our Steelers preview with the hey from Felicia, but it's our tradition. She said CA3 never wore his jersey or a snap on the game day field, including preseason. And Steelers fans are hyped, like 2-year vet when he's still wearing his rookie scent. I see Steelers fans. I think she's right. But I think Steelers Nation is really divided with Calvin Austin III. And the truth is in the middle. There are people that are still super hyped on him. Oh, man, here he comes back. I'm probably, if I had to fit more into one category than the other, I'm probably on that one. Oh, it's like they have an extra 4th-round pick. He's coming back. Calvin Austin III. He's already their answer. He's going to be the number 3. He's going to be the number 3. He's going to go in the slot. He's going to do all these crazy things. But then you also have other Steelers fans like, hey, he couldn't get on the field at all his rookie year. The Steelers shouldn't even count on him. He might not even make the roster. Oh, he's just another Sunquest Golston. That's the end of it. He's done. He's at the bottom of the depth chart. Don't even consider him. Neither one of those is right.
No, neither one. You're right.
Neither one of them is right.
It goes into what I tell. So the work I do at the college, I deal with student conduct, and I explain to students that get sent in to see me, so that they understand how it is that I work. Okay, it's like I get I tell students I get a report. If those of you on Facebook that are watching live, you can see I'm putting my hand out here and say I get a report. Over here, I get what students tell me goes on. What do I know? I know the truth is somewhere between those two.
Yes.
The closer those two things are together, the easier my job is. Right? but I
Yeah.
know it's somewhere in between the two is the real story. It's the same thing with what you just said. There's what this person says on this extreme, there's what somebody says on the other extreme, and we know that really the real answer is going to be somewhere in between the two.
Yeah. And I still think it's exciting to see what Calvin Austin III can do, but I'm not going into the season with an expectation that he has to be a big contributor.
Right.
Yeah, which is probably the better place to be. And I'm not just sitting there saying I'm right about it. No, that's not the case. I get too hyped over certain things, and I push down the hype. To me, I'd rather push down the hype and then be pleasantly surprised. Like last year, right after Kenny Pickett was drafted, I was between Jeff Bryan and I, when we went on, I'm like, I could see him getting on the field early. You don't see it as a redshirt season? No, I don't see it as a redshirt season. Within weeks, those guys were convinced that he was going to start week 1. I'm like, you both wanted to redshirt him on draft nights, and now you're convinced he started week 1. You know where I sat? I sat on draft night. Hey, he could get on the field in the first half of the season. And you know where I sat going into the season? You know what? He's not going to be the starter right away, but he could get on the field the first half of the season. I'll say it again. I thought he was going to be the number 3 quarterback for the first couple weeks because I thought they wouldn't want him to have to come in an emergency situation due to an injury, take a couple weeks and let Rudolph be the guy that's dressed, then move KP. I still think that's what Tama wanted to do, except AR2 wanted to be able to sell number 8 jerseys because he has to wear them in order to sell them. And then but by a few weeks into the season, it might be ready for him to step in. And that's what happened. But the thing was, it's not that because I'm still not saying I'm right. I thought it might have even been the bye week. So, but it really depended on how the Steelers were doing. But it's all about, sometimes we get overhyped with the shiny new thing. Someone said that in the live chat about a shiny new toy. And I thought that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I got another one I really want to bring up. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a break. Yeah, and then we're going to come back and get a little bit into my wheelhouse. We're going to go offensive line, particularly offensive tackle, when we come back. So if you're with us here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we're going to be gone a couple seconds. If you're with us on the podcast side, stick around after these messages. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are back at this. This is the Scho Bro Show. I'm still Dave Schofield. Big Bro Scho is still here, except when he's not, and it happens to be that he's here. It's not very, I keep saying that because it's fun, but it's not very often that you're not here.
It's not very often.
It's really not. I think I said that 1 week after you missed 1 week in there.
Yes.
and then that's been it ever since.
I had something. So, it was last fall when Renee and I took a trip for the week, and I missed a week, and Kyle filled in for me. I think that wasn't it. Did Kyle?
I can't remember. I know Kyle did at one point.
Then you.
Oh, and because remember we had Daniel J. He was the honorary Scho Bro for a while. For
he fills in for you.
Well, he filled in for you too, because I remember. Yeah, because people said minus the sunglasses. That you guys could almost pass for each other. I'm like, maybe on the podcast side. Yeah, I can see that. Wearing similar hats and all that.
What's hilarious is people don't see it here because I don't do it for the podcast. What do I always have on that I'm either wearing or are sitting right up here?
Sunglasses.
I always have sunglasses.
Well, you've got to wear the sunglasses to games in order for the Steelers to win, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So keep them on, even when it's cloudy out.
Yeah. So I'm going to do some. Sherry was the first one to kind of bring this up because I said that I was going into the offensive line. I've seen a couple comments. This is some comments on articles at behindthesteelcurtain.com. Yes, that website still exists. And a couple people made this. I heard the same phrase more than once, and it kind of just gets me another thing of like, man, you're really reading the tea leaves too much. And the phrase was, now that Dan Moore is no longer a starter. I don't know about you. That's jumping a gun a little bit in a couple different areas. Okay, Dan Moore has started for the Steelers the last 2 seasons. He's missed 1 game. He missed 0 snaps last year. Was he good enough? No. Can he get better? Yes. So there we go. Stay in Steelers, Daniel J.
Thanks, Daniel
Sunglasses
J.
inside is a trend returning. There you go, Daniel. Um, does he? I mean, he showed up heavier but leaner to OTAs today. That was noted by some Steelers beat reporters. I don't know exactly which one said it, that he was heavier, but that was something that he was working on. Now, when people say Dan Moore's still starting, then they make an assumption that you're talking about left tackle, which might not be the case. So first I'll go with this. Which approach you want to take first? You want to take the Chuks Okorafor approach, or you want to take the Broderick Jones approach?
I don't care.
Okay, we'll go Broderick Jones. Okay.
Okay.
Not this past week, but the week before, I'm pretty sure it was the week before, on Jeffrey's cutting room floor. He did a great job talking about, it might even been the week before that, about talking about the offensive line of Broderick Jones. Love that the Steelers trade up for Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones has the physical attributes to be an elite left tackle in the NFL. There's someone who likes to comment on the articles at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Yes, that website still exists. That talked ahead of the draft about how left tackle was so important, that it's such an important position in the NFL, and that the Steelers, if they had an opportunity for a left tackle, they should definitely do that over a cornerback or anything like that. While I agreed, it still depended exactly on how the draft fell. I will still say this. When you talk about the importance of that position, getting somebody that's really great is hard to find. You either have to draft towards the top of the draft, or you really have to find a diamond in the rough. The Steelers have generally taken the diamond in the rough approach. And that's what they still had. And Chuks Okorafor was a 3rd-round draft pick. Dan Moore Jr., 4th-round draft pick. To me, if you're going to find that great of a player, that's a diamond in the rough for that position at that point of the draft. So 2 years ago, when Christian Darrisaw was falling and landed one spot before the Steelers and went to Minnesota, if he wouldn't have been drafted there, I'd have been furious if the Steelers drafted Najee Harris.
Yes.
Okay. Because just look at what that guy's done in 2 years, too. And he missed some time due to injury. That's the kind of player that you want. The Steelers traded up 3 spots because they saw what Broderick Jones could be. But there was something that Jeffrey Benedict said in his podcast that sometimes Steelers fans need to remember this. Broderick Jones has all the physical attributes to be an elite NFL left tackle. If that's the case, why was he still there at 14? Why was he there at 14? Inexperience.
Correct. He's also quite young
and raw.
Little less experience, so a little more raw. We have to continue his development to get him to that elite left tackle status. He has everything he needs. All the puzzle pieces are there, but we still got to put the puzzle together.
Yeah. And
versus Darrisaw, who when he was there, you might have had, if you had a 100-piece puzzle, you might have had 98 pieces already together. Yeah,
but there was some questions with him. That's why he was still there. It was 23, right? Because Najee Harris went 24. So that was the thing. There's if a tackle is still there at that point, then there's something that's not exactly the teams aren't exactly sure with. And with Broderick Jones, although I heard Nick Faribault calling him Broderick Jones, I'm assuming it's Broderick until I hear him say it different. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I know it's not DeMonte Kazi. Sorry, Jeffrey. That the thing was, if he was NFL ready, meaning if he wasn't a player that might take some time to get acclimated, he would have been a top 3 pick. That's how good he is and the attributes that he has. So you have to add. So
that's how physically gifted he is.
Yes.
What it is the, I don't want to say the we don't know that he hasn't reached his full football potential yet, but you think that if he can reach that full football potential, that the physical attributes that he has will make him elite.
Yes. Here, Steelers Freak says needs polishing. All the draft picks have that in common. Yeah, most do. Well, it's kind of like when you talk cornerback. They're like, oh, the Steelers with their drafting of cornerbacks, blah, blah, blah. Cornerbacks, a lot of that times depend on KT Smith talked about this in the past. It depends on the system. There are some cornerbacks that are so good, it doesn't matter what the system is. Those guys go in the top 8.
Sorry, Felicia's leaving. Bye, okay. Felicia.
But those cornerbacks go in the top 5 to 8 picks, depending on the year of everything else going on. So that's why. So, but most players need polishing. And like Captain Underpants, yes, I saw your earlier comment. We can resume that conversation another time. Said it's like, do we have the right coaches for him to become elite? I like the Steelers offensive line coach. I like Pat Meyer. I like how things came along last year. So I'm hoping that I mean, that's still reading the tea leaves. I'm hopeful, but that's the other thing. So does this mean that Broderick Jones is going to be ready to step in and start week 1? I wouldn't write it in ink. But I'm not writing him on as a reserve in ink either, because there's a lot that he can learn and develop through training camp. And the question's going to be is how fast does he pick it up? Last year, all the Steelers offensive linemen, the new guys, the old guys, were picking up Pat Meyer's system and the difference there and the different philosophy in offensive line. It didn't matter who you had. They all were going to do it. Now you got guys that have been there for a year. So how quickly does Broderick Jones pick up Pat Meyer stuff? And does he fix some of these things from college that he could get by with just because he was so darn good? That now in the NFL, you need to tweak some of these things because you're going up against the best of the best. So I'm not ready to say that he's going to start week 1. But also, here's the other thing with Steelers fans. Don't read into this too much. With the tea leaves, if he does start week 1, expect growing pains. Do you really want him going out there week 1 and then struggling, and then people saying, bring back Dan Moore? You know there's going to be people that say that. Or some, why did they even bother? No, it's going to take time. The question is, and this is what they're going to have to determine throughout training camp, is the best way for Broderick Jones to learn and get to that level by continuing to work in practice and being there in a reserve role, or by getting out on the field and having to take his lumps. That's going to be the ultimate decision. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Here, I'm going to go to another thing. I'm going to bring Steeler Freak back up again.
Okay.
After throwing Green in there as a rookie, they may be gun shy.
They didn't have a choice. That was that crazy cap drop here.
Yeah, and I also don't think that there's anything about being gun shy.
Yeah.
The person that's going to start is going to be the person that's shown the coaching staff through training camp and through the preseason that they're the person that should be getting snap number 1 on the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't disagree with what he said. I don't disagree with what he said at all. You could be like, do we really want to? Because look, what would Kendrick Green possibly be if he didn't play center for at least the first half of that year or at all that year? We still might be talking about him being the next guy that's still in development. But that's not what happened.
Yeah.
So I would much rather have a 3rd-round pick that you had to use for a year as a stopgap when you couldn't go out and do stuff because of the crazy salary cap stuff, and him never play again out of a 3rd-round pick than to put a 1st-round pick out there too soon, then have things happen and not develop in the way. Because Kendrick Green's a cautionary tale. Who knows if he would have been able to develop more by being more prepared mentally and all those other things and understanding what he had to do at the center position at the NFL level before having to go out there and start at week 1. Absolutely. So that's the question you want to ask yourself. I want to see Broderick Jones. I want to see what he can do. I'm really excited about the preseason. But I also understand if the Steelers we have a pretty good situation. We can ease him into stuff to make him to make him ultimately get to a higher level in his career than what he would be now. That's just that's the Broderick Jones angle. So I'm pulling for him. I want to see him do well, but he doesn't have to be that guy. Just, don't be because the Steelers traded up for him, he's got to play right away.
No, but if he comes in training camp and the preseason and just utterly dominates,
get him out there. That's why you drafted him.
Exactly. Yeah. Then it's just, hey, we drafted him there. We're getting everything we thought and then some. Then you go ahead and you do it. But the thing is, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, you don't have, unless there's an injury problem somewhere.
Right.
You don't have to do it. But let's remind everyone of something else.
Yep.
If he doesn't,
the other side now.
Well, no, I will.
Okay.
I will. But this is just a little gentle reminder. Okay. I'm thinking of another player that the Steelers traded up for in the first round, and that the Steelers didn't throw into the fire their first season. And Steeler fans thought it was an absolute waste. The Steelers traded all the way up to 16 to take this guy, and he can't even start a game his rookie year. Tell that to his gold jacket.
Yes.
Okay. Because that was Troy Polamalu in 2003. Okay. He didn't start a game. He was out there in sub packages, things like that. They did not they traded up for him, but they didn't throw him into the fire. And Steelers fans, his first year, wanted to throw out the B word. And now he is a bust because his bust is in Canton. Right? So just remember, even though they traded up for him, it doesn't have to go that way. And my goodness, could you imagine if Troy Polamalu got thrown out there? I mean, maybe he could have handled it his rookie year. Maybe he could have, but didn't have to. And look at the magic that happened in the next couple seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't look. Could the Steelers put him out there and everything turned out the same? Maybe. But being able to look back, can you really fault for the way that it played out? No, because it played out so awesomely.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, let's move to the other side because I still have one more of these about the tea leaves I want to bring up. So the other side is you look at Chuks Okorafor. We're not going to spend much time there. And I know Wes said this much early. He asked a question. He said, didn't Dan Moore, I probably won't say it the same way Wes did. Maybe I'll say it a little bit more gentle. Didn't he struggle on the right side? He was a rookie. Okay. I have a feeling after 2 years in the NFL, if Dan Moore had to switch sides, it would be much easier now than what you saw from him as a rookie being out there. And to me, that was almost as much as I didn't think Chuks played well on the left. I didn't think Moore played as well on the right. So they said, well, why are we trying to force this? Switch him back. And if Dan Moore Jr. does not play well on the right side and Broderick Jones is ready to go, the Dan Moore Jr. is not going to play. But I'll make my bold statement, and I'll continue to say it. Since the bye week last year, Dan Moore Jr. was better than Chuks Okorafor. And if you actually look at their PFF scores, not that I always think that they're right, but this one kind of passed my test. People didn't like Dan Moore Jr., but if you look at him over the second half of the season last year, he was actually the Steelers' highest rated lineman. He struggled early and got better.
And
still, like I said, still not good enough to not be above replacement. Upgraded, but yeah.
And a very small point that was made in KT Smith's article on the web on Behind the Steel Curtain today was that Dan Moore Jr. is actually a phenomenal run blocker.
Yeah, which would put him better on the right side. And I think Chuks Okorafor is a better pass blocker, but they haven't.
So this is one where we drafted the left tackle. We drafted Broderick Jones, and everybody said, "Well, no more Dan Moore," and it's like, whoa. Don't read too much into those tea leaves. Don't read too much into them. Yes, we have more options on the line now, but they're right now just that. Nothing's done.
I just look
done, set in stone, not there. Just hold on.
I just look from 2 years ago and look at how everything was upgraded. So, I mean, so much so now that you're like, there's 3 tackles, only 2 of them are going to start. Competition's only going to make them better. It really is. John Stevens said something pretty interesting here. He says, I want the best line in front of Pickett that money can buy. I don't want to see him getting killed by a defensive player like in the Ravens game. I agree. And that was ultimately the problem with Kevin Dotson, who had some of the best games on the offensive line for the Steelers while still also having some of the worst, just not having the consistency there. And hence why the Steelers go out and they upgrade. So yeah, I get that. I get that. And whether it's Dan Moore Jr. developing, starting off the year at left tackle, whether it's Broderick Jones thrown, I don't want to say thrown into the fire, but winning the job right away, I feel better about a really good a really good strong left guard, whether it's Samalo or whether him and Daniels flip. I don't think they're going to flip, but maybe they do. I don't know. And I think that's something really, really good to look at. So anything else you want to say about that? Or I was going to throw another one out there.
Go throw the last one you got out there.
Okay, because the last one I have is actually from the other end of the spectrum. And it's something we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about, how Steelers fans have changed their perception of what's the strongest and weakest position groups. And like I said, inside linebacker was the weakest position group voted on by a mile. That's not because I feel that they got weaker. It's because I felt the other ones that were weak ended up getting stronger. So it was the more obvious choice. But one of those things, like offensive line went from one of the most concerning from last year to one of the least concerning at this point, where safety went in the other direction. It was one of the most, one of the least concerning from the 2022 season to one of the most concerning going into 2023. And the only thing that changed was Terrell Edmunds. Now, I liked Terrell Edmunds. I always liked Terrell Edmunds. Yep. I did articles about what if him and Mason Rudolph were switched in where they were drafted, where it was Rudolph was the first round pick and Edmunds was early in the 3rd round. I don't think he would have made it that far, but just the perception of everything. So I always felt that, it wasn't his fault he was drafted in the 1st round. And I look at what he brought. And now Steelers fans who were down on him a bunch, now they feel like the safety position is really in trouble. And the only thing that the Steelers are missing from last year is Terrell Edmunds. I mean, they added Keanu Neal, but based on that switch out, Steelers fans are really concerned about that. And my question is, should they be? I mean, I can see being concerned, but I don't know if it's concerning as some people are making it out to like the Steelers can't go into this season with this safety.
We suddenly went right. We suddenly went to the sky is falling.
Yes,
and for me personally, that was tough to swallow because I'd seen through the years a lot of Terrell Edmunds critics, and I was always an Edmunds fan because I spent time looking at his play at the little things he did in his game that weren't flashy, that didn't catch a lot of attention, that made the Steelers secondary good.
Yeah. No splash, but that's who he was. No splash,
but he helped cover up some flaws. So to me, I was sad to see him go. But when everybody then suddenly went to the sky is falling, I was like, wait a minute, you people weren't that big on this guy. And the only reason most of you were happy we had him on the roster last year is because we got him so cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was, to put it kindly, I was just kind of lost in terms of just that I'll call it the swing feelings that were had on Terrell Edmunds.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
I thought Terrell Edmonds was a big loss, but based on KZ and the signing of Neal and everything else, and the fact that, Minka's still going to be sitting back there, not as concerned about safety as apparently a lot of other people were.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the live chat that are not concerned about safety, and I get you there because I'm gonna throw some little ideas out here.
They're not concerned. That's because they're here every week and listen to our show, and we make sense.
Well, Terrell Edmonds, he was a complimentary piece. He was very complimentary to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I've seen other Steelers fans saying, oh, well, the Steelers really need that Terrell Edmonds type safety. They don't have that. That's not who Keanu Neal is. That's not who DeMonte KZ is. What are they going to do? How are they going to do this with their defense? And my thing is, if they wanted a Terrell Edmonds like safety, they would have put up a little bit more money and got Terrell Edmonds. If that's what they wanted, he left so cheap that he could have come back cheap. And the Steelers didn't do it. Maybe he just wanted some a new scenery, show what he could do. I get that as well. But if it was that important, the Steelers could have ponied up a little bit more money. So my thing is, do the Steelers want another Terrell Edmonds type of safety? Or were the Steelers only doing what they did in the secondary because they had a Terrell Edmonds type safety? Did it, and it worked really well. They got all those interceptions, everything else. So you assume that it was great. But was it that Terrell Edmonds was the right piece to do what the Steelers wanted to do? Or was it the Steelers did what they had to do because they had Terrell Edmonds and they really want to do something different? I don't know if that's true, but I think it's an interesting question.
Yes, because let me put another question, the interesting type of question out there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is who does Minkah Fitzpatrick want to be?
Yeah.
Because if Minkah Fitzpatrick thinks, maybe he's hit a point in his career where he's looking at it and he's saying, you know what? I'm right in smack dab in the prime of my career. And maybe I'd like to be a little more Troy Polamalu. Right?
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to be more Troy Polamalu, you know what you need? You need
your Ryan Clark.
With him, you need your Ryan Clark. Okay.
I don't think Terrell Edmonds was not Ryan Clark.
No.
Yeah.
DeMonte KZ's more Ryan Clark.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder if there's not some thoughts and things that they're wanting to do where it's like, we can do things differently with some different guys here. Again, I don't know, but to me, it was not the sky is falling scenario that apparently some folks thought it was.
To me, it's all about what are you going to do? What do you want to do? I mean, it really, I hate to say it, but it really is this. If you have red paint, you paint your barn red. That's really true. If you have Terrell Edmonds as your second best safety behind Minkah Fitzpatrick, then you play it a certain way. If DeMonte KZ ends up being your second best safety, that's a whole different story. And who knows if the Steelers secondary would have looked very different throughout the season from the very beginning if KZ wouldn't have been injured in the final preseason game and missed the first half of the season.
Right.
So my thing is, did Terrell Edmonds allow? Oh, is it that one? Go ahead, bring it up because I think I might have been getting ready to say this.
Right,
did Terrell Edmonds allow Minkah to be Minkah, or is there more of what Minkah wants to be Minkah?
Exactly, and that's kind of what I'm saying there, CD. I'm not saying that we're trying to turn Minkah into Troy. What I'm saying is Minkah sees the opportunity to potentially do some different things. Would he be able to do those different things on the field playing next to Terrell Edmonds? Mm-hmm. And maybe they look at it and says, no, we can free him up to do some other things on the field playing him next to DeMonte KZ.
And guess what? We're going to have to tune in and watch in 2023 to see if it works out better or worse.
Yeah.
Some might think it's better. Some might think it's worse. But it doesn't have to just be in one.
And-
It doesn't have to be
and
one way. And that was our point with reading the tea leaves.
And it may not be better or worse. It just may be different.
Yeah. Here. And then Pedro, I'll mess up the last name. Pedro said he got suspended. Correct. But that's not the whole story. He got suspended while he was on IR. He was not coming back from a broken forearm before the bye week. But what happened is while he was suspended, you're like, he didn't actually miss games he would have been able to play in. You're like, well, is that really a suspension? He lost his pay. He lost his pay during that time. So yes, he was suspended, but I don't know that he might have been able to come back another week or two, but there was no way he was going to come back before that suspension was happening. So they overlapped is the best way to say it. And we'll never know exactly what it was. So, yeah. So that's some interesting stuff there, Rich. I think we kind of hit on some of the main things we want to talk about.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So because we brought up so many different topics about saying, just relax, not reading into it. Which one are we going to choose for our big question here at the end?
I know that's what I was wondering too.
Yeah. So,
you know what? I've got one.
Okay,
because,
you get one.
Okay. Now, you know what I'm going to be doing here? I'm going to be asking our live chat to actually try to read the tea leaves.
Read the tea. Okay. We want you to read the tea leaves.
They're going to
do it. Relax, take a deep breath, and try to say, let's not go too extreme one way or the other, and let's try to see if we can find out somewhere more in the middle where there's a good chance it could be. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, what I'm doing is, and because I'm not going to let us knee jerk to what everybody likes to knee jerk to, which is who starts the season. No, we're going to look further. Okay. So I'm looking at, let's say we get to, you know what? Let's go all the way out to say either Sunday night against the Jags or the following Thursday against the Titans. So we're going out
Sunday afternoon against the Jags.
Yeah. End of October, last week of October, first week of November. Okay. Two things looking for here. Reading the tea leaves, who do we see at that midseason point as our starting left tackle and our starting right tackle?
So it's going to be,
who are your two tackles?
And just separate them with a comma. Go left, then right. So you're saying there. So I thought you might say after the bye, which is week 7. You want to go just a little bit further.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit. I'm going to say by that time, we're looking at Broderick Jones at left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't think he'll start there the season, and he could even come in and get some right tackle snaps at some point. I think it's going to be Broderick Jones, and I'm going to take a flyer. I really want to see him take a step. Then I'm going to say Dan Moore Jr. I know that's going to upset people because you're paying Chooks a quarter for, but you got to have the best guys on the field. That's what I'm going to say. Remember, don't answer yet till I put the question out there. People forgot.
There's Tyler out there busting on asking.
So we got it. What about you, Rich? What do you think?
So, okay.
You got 3 names. It's just, unless you think you're going to throw in another one. Yeah. So we got to get going because people. I didn't lay out the rules for everyone again.
I'm going with Jones, and I too am going to go with Moore because I just think that the Steelers will be looking too much at the run game and think he brings too much to the run game blocking to potentially hold him back. So, all right, put it out there.
We're going to go to start week 10 because that would be just past the midpoint of the season, and the Steelers would have already had their bye. So, wow, people were ready. George goes Jones and Chooks. I could see that. CD says Jones and Chooks. Thomas Riley says Jones and Moore. Great 103 says Jones and Okorafor. Then it jumped on me. Okay. Captain Underpants says Jones and Moore. So see, even people are saying maybe you should hold the film by saying Dan Moore Jr. is not a starter again. It could happen. Demetrios says Jones and Chooks.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm waiting for someone else to not say Jones, but I think a lot of people are saying Jones because I think at that point of the season is going to happen. Maybe we should have gone a little bit sooner, but that's okay.
I don't know. Well, I was just wondering. Part of what I was wanting to see is this. I'm kind of wanting to see this. Everybody think he's the physical freak. I think he is.
Yeah.
Because that's why I put it there.
So
I think
honestly, we kind of assumed everyone's going to say Jones. We could have just asked just right tackle, but we thought we'd throw in and let you say left in case you wanted to have a little bit more freedom. So here we go. Still Dog 88. He says Jones and Moore. Afton says Bro Joe. Bro Joe. I like that one. And Moore. Wes says Jones and Moore. People would say they're there. John Funker, I got to make sure that's what I got to stop and make sure I say right. He says Jones and Chooks. Tyler W says Jones and Chooks. See, now I wouldn't be upset if it was Chooks either because that means he's playing well. I want to see two tackles playing well. Okay, here we go. Kathy says Moore and Jones. I like your outside the box thinking, Kathy. Saying
I was
just going to hold on to that. You want to see if someone was going to say
anything. I wasn't going to say anything, but that's the one I was waiting to see if we heard as well.
Yeah, to me, I think at some point you're going to want to have Broderick Jones at left tackle because he is your future. But the question is, at what point? It might not even be in year one, but I think it could be, should be, but maybe not. Okay, Richard Adamson says Moore at right and Jones. He gave it the wrong order. That's okay, but it's Jones. It was Jones and Moore.
At least he labeled it.
Yes, thank you for labeling it, just to make sure. I just thought that was funny. Yeah, just a little more. Sherry says there was a long answer in there, so I'm not bringing that one up just because I can't sort through it. Sherry says Jones left, Moore right. Daniel J. State of the Steelers says Jones and Chooks. Jennifer says Jones and Chooks. John says Moore and Jones. I'm assuming that he meant left and right, but maybe he got those switched. Kari, I think it's Kari. I'm probably wrong. Says Jones and Chooks. And okay, I'm sorry. I just Steelers Freak thinks that Darnell Washington is going to be going the Larry Brown route.
Oh, well,
that in a few years moves from China. Little light for a tackle, but you could add that on. Okay, it's funny because Tyler wants to know what everyone decided Moore was good. You must not have been here for that part of the show there, Tyler, when I explained Moore was not as bad in the second half of the season, what people made it out to be. They just saw bad play early and assumed that's what it was because they didn't watch him all the time. So, yeah. I'm going to bring this up because it talks. It's not the exact answer, but I think it's an interesting thing to say. Hot take. I think Moore has 100% of the snaps at the end of the season. I think he starts at left tackle and then slides at the bye.
Okay.
I can see that. Pittsburgh wanted to know, isn't Jones exclusively a left tackle? No, he's not. He talked about that he had to know both of them at Georgia and practice both of them in order to, because of what they wanted to do at the position. If it's one of those things, it's kind of like when Marquise Pouncey was ready to play tackle at one point because he was going to be their next best option out there because the backup at center would have been better than the next option they had at tackle. Just kind of how it works. Seeing if we got it. Do we have any more here?
Nope.
Okay. And I it's Carrie, not Kari. Thanks for telling me, Afton. Here we go. Got to bring it up just to finish up. Tyler says, Dave caught me swooping in for the daily question. No, we're just glad you made it at all, Tyler. Great stuff. So I just think that's I hope we didn't step on it too many toes. Didn't want to be, especially. Sorry, Andrew Wilbar. Yeah.
No, it's just the look. It's so easy right now. I liked the analogy that you gave. Let's try to catch ourselves, and I do it to myself a lot. Let's not go too far to Mike Greenberg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's why I liked him and Golick together, because when Greenberg would start, Golick would haul him back and put him in check. We need to be doing that to ourselves. Hold on. Let's not go too crazy or too extreme. Let's calm things down a little bit and let things move. Oh, gee whiz.
Sorry, Demetrius said no one said LaRaven Clark. Good one. Go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
That's okay. But we just want to make sure that we're trying to not overdo things yet. Now, we want to get into this crazy stuff by the time we're rolling into training camp and a couple days into training camp. Then we'll have some stuff there, see live. You know what? Then go for it, because it's all going to play out quickly. There's too much time right now to just sit and think about it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you just need to remind yourself something. Not every draft pick works out. Not every draft pick is ready right away. Not every free agent is going to be the best that they can be. For every Larry Foote, no, wait, I said Larry Foote, sorry. For every James Ferrier, I got the wrong F linebacker. For every James Ferrier, there is also a Dante Moncrief or a Ladarius Green. So think about that. You're going to get great ones. They're even better than what you expect. But if you think every free agent that comes in from the last year is going to do well, chances are one of them is not. Like last year, to me, I'm going to say it was Gunnar Rowe was the bad one. That's the one that didn't work out because he lost his job as a kick returner. So when you remind yourself of those things, but the thing is, I feel that the Steelers have done so much with their roster that if you have a draft pick that doesn't work out, let's say you have someone like a Calvin Austin III that doesn't see the field at all this year. If you have have one of your free agents that doesn't quite work out, that I'm hoping it's not an inside linebacker because they're not very, they're kind of thin there. So that's why it's concerning. But remind yourself that not everything's it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Not everything's going to work out perfectly. But it's not all going to be terrible. It's going to land somewhere in the middle. And the closer you can get to that working out better is what's going to make this team really step forward. Someone asked, it might have been Steelers Freak earlier, said, what would you call a successful season this year for the Steelers? I'm like, I want improvement from last year. They finished 9-8. I want to see them take that step to am I saying it's Super Bowl or bust this year? No. I want to be able to say Super Bowl or bust next year based on the jump they made this year. That's what I want. I want them to get to a point that I am talking Super Bowl next year. And who knows, maybe even this year we get pleasantly surprised. All right. Make sure you're following all our podcasts, checking them out. Got some good stuff. Might be a little bit of change up tomorrow night with the curtain call. We'll see what we have in store there. Sorry, there's no Steelers Vertex article this week for those of you who like to check those out because Jeffrey's away. But other than that, he's in your neck of the woods.
DB hanging in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. So make sure you check that out. And like I said, make sure you're checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com because, yes, that website still exists. We do have a great community, even though some of the stuff we pulled from tonight was from people that stay stuff there. But you know what? That's who we are. We're fans. We react, but sometimes we have to remember to put ourselves in check a little bit. Rich, what do you want to say to close us out here tonight?
Hey, it was exciting to see OTAs kick off today. They'll be going on here for a little while, which to me is fantastic because it just means we're getting to actually see little clips of guys out on the field and doing things, and we're hearing from the players, just a whole different level of interaction with the Steelers. So, we'll be back next week. We'll probably have a little more from OTAs we'll get to talk about, and I can't wait.
Can't wait.